New questions out tonight about Michelle Bachmann's husband and tactics allegedly used to cure gays at the family's clinic have emerged after an undercover investigation into Bachmann and Associates' use of the controversial treatment. It broke last night. Well, this revelation ultimately hurt Michelle Bachmann's presidential campaign. We'll see. Joining us now is Evan Hurst, the social media director for Truth Wins Out, a group responsible for the undercover video, and Michelle Goldberg, who's covering this story for the Daily Beast and Newsweek. Michelle, give us a wrap-up quickly to people who don't know about this group called Bachmann and Associates and what it does with people who are gay who come in for what they call treatment.
Well, there's long been reports that Bachmann and Associates practices ex-gay therapy, or it's sometimes called reparative therapy, which is a really dangerous and discredited technique designed to basically turn gay people straight through prayer and through techniques like practicing their masculinity and trying to develop sexual attraction to the opposite sex in various ways. So there's been these rumors have been around for a while. Marcus Bachmann has explicitly denied them in the past. Now there's proof that this is what he was doing, which was always pretty clear. You know, both Bachmanns have always been pretty clear that they believe that homosexuality is a disorder that can be cured. Now there's undercover video showing a therapist in his clinic doing just that.
Well, let's take a look at Marcus Bachmann, husband to Michelle Bachmann, the U.S. Congresswoman, last year talking about homosexuality and his views thereon. Let's listen.
What do you say when your teenager says she's gay?
There's that curiosity. It is as if we have to understand barbarians need to be educated. They need to be disciplined. And just because someone feels it or thinks it doesn't mean that we're supposed to go down that road. We have a responsibility as parents and as authority figures not to encourage such thoughts and feelings.
Well, let me go to Evan Hurst on that. That was a lot of people will hear that as a strange way of saying anything. But in this case, saying that if you feel you're gay, you think you're gay, you may not be because of what? Take us from there, Evan Hurst.
Well, basically what they say is that what you feel about yourself isn't necessarily true. The thing about people like the Bachmanns and all the ex-gay people around the country is that, you know, all of these ministries say, well, our religious beliefs are absolute truths. So instead of trying to align those with science or make them coexist or anything like that, they're going to tell you that their religious beliefs are absolute truth and that you have to conform yourself to that. So, you know, yeah, you may feel you're gay. You may have known you were gay ever since you were, 12 years old. But no, you're not really gay, according to these people. And apparently you're a barbarian and have to be re-educated. So. Well,
let's look at the undercover video you took from a reparative counseling session, it's called, at Bachmann and Associates.
But the truth is, God has designed our eyes to be attracted to the woman's body. Sure. To be attracted to, everything, to be attracted to her friend.
Well, what do you make of that session? We could show a longer tape, but what would we see if we saw more of that, Evan?
You would see him going more and more into the idea of, men being made to be attracted to women's bodies and all of that kind of stuff. It's basically a slow kind of process where they just convince you more and more that what you really are and who you really are is evil. And it's really sick because a lot of the people who come into those kinds of programs, they come in from a perspective of already being told in some way, by their family or church or society that they are sick, and this just reinforces that even more.
Well, let's go back to Michelle, who's reporting on this. Michelle, objectively speaking, I guess most people would say, and if I've talked to a number of people who are gay, and they will tell you that they knew it fairly early on. We can argue about nurture and nature that for the rest of our lives. I don't think that's a fruitful discussion, perhaps. But here's a statement from the authorities, from the American Psychological Association, disavowing what we're talking about here, reparative therapy. Back in '97, 14 years ago, quote, "Our concern with reparative therapy is is that a person, especially a young person who enters into therapy to deal with issues of sexual orientation, should be able to have the expectation that such therapy would take place in a professionally neutral environment, absent of any societal bias. That's not the case here, is it, Michelle?
Well, yeah, and you can actually find an even stronger statement from the American Psychiatric Association, which says that this kind of therapy leads to increased self-hatred and even self-harm. There's a lot of evidence that it can lead to increased suicidal ideation. And there's a lot of evidence that it doesn't work. I mean, there's a whole lot of ex-gays out there, people who claim to be ex-gay at one point and then later disavowed the whole thing and said that, you know, they had never really been free of their attractions. I mean, just think about how hard it would be for a straight person to turn themselves gay, to get an idea of how, you know, immutable this stuff is. And so...
Well, let's talk to Michelle just before I go back to Evan about the politics of this thing. Is your sense that this is a commonly held view among fundamentalist Christians? Is this a broadly held view that being gay is something that is sort of comes from something that went wrong in your life or something, and you can fix it because it's something that you picked up along the way that you shouldn't have picked up, not something that you had an orientation to?
Yeah, no, I think that it's kind of integral to their whole worldview. You know, in the same way that they're in denial about things like evolution, in the same way that there's a lot of climate science denial, they have to believe that this is an illness or a disorder or a choice, because otherwise their position on gay rights and on gay marriage would just be sheer bigotry, and nobody wants to see themselves as a bigot. I don't think they do see themselves as bigots. They see themselves as wanting to help people who are broken. Look, just Tim Pawlenty himself has refused to say that homosexuality is natural or that it's inborn.
Yeah, because I guess he's probably thinking he's taking a moderate position because he hasn't said directly that it's somehow you picked it up because you chose it. That is a relatively moderate view these days, by the way, on the right. Here's Michelle Bachmann responding, the Congresswoman, responding to questions about her husband's clinic just yesterday.
What is your opinion on reparative therapy, and is it something that is conducted at that center?
Well, I'm running for the presidency of the United States, and I'm here today to talk about job creation and also the fact that we do have a business that deals with job creation. We're very proud of the business that we've created.
But of course, the issue today is about this reparative therapy and what this hidden camera video caught, and their opinions are going to be aired on tonight's news, and you don't want to comment on that and give your side?
Well, I'm here to talk about my run for the presidency of the United States. As I said again, we're very proud of our business, and we're proud of all job creators in the United States. That's what people really care about.
Well, let me get back to Evan. I've had some experience trying to interview the Congresswoman. I know what happens. I've kidded her, I guess, rather forcefully that she's under hypnosis. Under this time, I think she's under the guidance of Ed Rollins, and she's, or someone, and she's clearly disciplined herself to the point where she's not going to talk about this stuff. Is it your sense, Evan, you're an activist, why do you think it's relevant? Make the case. Why is it relevant that her family's involved in this business, if you will, trying to make not just people not creating jobs, but creating straights, if you will?
Yeah, it is a business, first of all. It's not only a business, Chris, but it's consumer fraud. And the truth of the matter is that, you know, what's important about this story is that people like Michelle Bachmann, and she's obviously not the only one, but they're going to say certain things to their base, because this kind of thing actually, you know, you asked before, do her true believers really believe this? Of course they do. They don't think they're bigots, and they actually think they're helping. But, you know, that's just not the case, and science says that's not the case. But what's important about this, Chris, is that she's going to try to say one thing to the base, and then when she gets confronted in an interview like that, she's going to try to, you know, get rid of the question or make it go away, because she's trying to play all different sides of this right now. And, you know, people need to know that, you know, we have over 50% support for marriage equality now in this country, Chris.
Okay.
You know,
I know the country's changing its mind. I talk about it all the time, Evan. I agree with you. The country's changing rapidly. Let me get back to Michelle for the reporting on this. It seems to be the danger here, if you're looking at this critically, is that there's a whole pattern here of people on the right trying to defend an ideology or a religious point of view against evidence that's common sense and nature. The idea that this planet, or people living on this planet, is only 5,000 or 6,000 years old against millions of years of evidence of life on this planet. All kinds of evidence of dinosaurs they erase. All kinds of evidence of evolution. I mean, why do we test on animals animals when we're doing medical tests, if they're not somehow related to us physiologically somehow? Why would we do these tests? There's so much evidence and common sense about people who know gay people who really do believe in their heart that that's who they are and that's who how God made them to be blunt. And so why I do see a dangerous pattern here of fighting reality. And I don't know anybody who would want somebody who's president of the United States who doesn't live in the real world. Your thoughts on this? Last thought for you, Michelle.
That's been the kind of most important story about the right and increasingly about the Republican Party of the last decade or so. It's been the construction of an entire parallel reality and the attempt to force the real world to conform to it and force the rest of us to live in it. You know, you see that with their own kind of economic theories about the debt limit. You know, it's no longer a discussion about opinions and policies. It's about two sets of facts, one of which has been kind of entirely constructed to support an ideology.
And it's what we're fighting in the world, this fundamentalism, this Talibanism, this jihadism, this purity of thought that requires the universe to adapt to what you believe it should be. And it can get dangerous. A lot of suicides come out of this kind of stuff. Obviously, we don't need to make people feel worse. We should make them feel better. Evan Hurst,
we already have a problem with that.
You mentioned that. Thank you so much. Michelle Goldberg, thank you as well for reporting this story to us for Newsweek and the Daily Beast.